वाहिगुरू जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरू जी की fateh. Maharaj Kitpa, you are keeping safe and well. My name is Inderjit Kaur and I am fortunate enough to volunteer for Mata Sahib Kaur Educational Trust. Can everybody hear me? I just want to check. Somebody say yes if you can hear me, because this is the first time I'm doing it with my earphones. So I'm just checking that people can hear me. Yes. Thank you, Benji. So, as I was saying, I'm fortunate enough to volunteer for Mata Sahib Kaur Educational Trust. And today we have a really special Instagram live for you. It's about mental health and well-being, which is very timely as it was Mental Health Awareness Week last month, though it does go without saying that the spotlight is and should always be on our mental health and well-being. So today we have a very special guest. We have Amandeep Kaur, and she is part of Seek Your Mind, and Seek Your Mind offer mental health support for the Punjabi and the Sikh community. So I'm just going to wait for Benji to hop on, although I think a request might already have been sent. So just waiting. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Benji, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
I'm
How do you
just
can?
I'm just obsessed with people not being able to hear me. Benji, thank you so much for joining us today with what I think is a really important topic. It's always important, but I think it's something that we need to shed more light on, especially in our community. So, Benji, I just wanted to start by talking a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind. Benji, you've got a brilliant job title, a wellness and resilience coach, which
And
sounds so cool. And what does that involve? What does that role involve, Benji?
so it's kind of a recent thing for me. So I only started about a year and a half ago.
Oh, wow.
Before that, I was working in London at a college, at university. So wellness and resilience coach, it's about moving forward, helping people move forward with their lives. So it's in a holistic way. So we look at the mind, how the mind is working, the body, and the spirituality if the person is interested. And it's really about, it's not just about setting goals and achieving it, but it's kind of working out what is your purpose in life, what do you want from life, and how do you get the most out of it. Sometimes it can be people are experiencing challenging times, so that's where the resilience comes in.
Yeah.
How do we cultivate the resilience to get through that time and learn from it and come out better from it? And kind of my personal journey was a lot of health difficulties,
Yeah.
and that's how I kind of came into it. So it could be about managing physical symptoms, which are very much linked to your emotions and your mind as well. So it's kind of looking at it from a holistic point of view and helping people move forward in their lives.
That sounds brilliant, Benji. Really, must be really satisfying as well for you to be able to reach out to people in that way. So, yeah, I was just curious as to what the job involved because I just thought it sounds like such an incredible job title. So, Benji, I wanted to speak about Seek Your Mind. And I love the play on the word seek.
And
I'm an English teacher. I'm obsessed with wordplay anyway. So I thought that was brilliant. That was fantastic. But how did you get involved with Seek Your Mind?
so I only got involved probably about a year and a half ago. So a good friend of mine, Dr. Darshan Kaur, some people might be familiar with her work. She was quite involved with them. And what we had been blessed enough to set up was to set up a Vichar group in Slough.
Yeah.
So what that entailed was a group of us women getting together every week, reading the Hukamnama or reading Gurbani and practically applying it in our lives. So it's a safe space where we can talk about things that affect us in our daily lives, but also apply the Gurmat approach. And so I just kind of met Benji and I invited her to that, and she was getting involved with Seek Your Mind. So she kind of said, well, are you interested? So I personally, my mum has bipolar disease.
My
So I've
goodness.
experienced kind of mental health issues in my family, and also myself. So when I was going through my physical challenges, it was quite an emotional time. And even when I was a teenager, I experienced some kind of anxiety and things like that. So at the same time coming onto the Sikhi path, it was like a merger of all the things. And I kind of had interested in counselling as well. I've done a counselling course. So it seemed like the perfect merger. And, mental health is such a big issue. I think it always has been, but
Yeah.
we've always pushed it under the carpet. But it's really coming out now. And our community it's not been that proactive until recently in terms of addressing the issues with mental health. So I felt quite passionately about it. And the
And
work that they were already doing was amazing.
they sound like an incredible organization. And also, um, mental health in the Punjabi community is something that I do want to touch on later on as well. But Abji very bravely spoke about your mum and yourself and your own sort of issues without prying. Did you feel that you had support, that there was access to support, or was it something you felt you had to fight for or look for, as is often the case? I hear from sort of my friends and
Sure.
family.
Yeah. So I think there's two issues, and I think my mum's challenges and my challenges had different issues. So in terms of my mum, she's been bipolar since before I was born, since before I can
Wow.
remember.
Wow.
And it's like most of our family didn't even know this till
Mm,
recently. So it was always pushed under the
yeah.
carpet. It was like there's lots of stigma attached. And sometimes she's okay, she's on medication and she gets through it, but other times she's really struggled. And the last few years she's really been struggling, and it was really difficult to find someone who could help her. She doesn't speak much English, hardly any at all. So it was really difficult to get her to see anybody that could understand. So that was a struggle in itself. For me, I think the issues were different. Even though, I'm meant to be from this younger generation,
Yeah.
it was very, I wasn't even aware that I needed the help.
Hmm.
So I was just trying to mull through it. I was like, I'm the mother of the family. I need to, I
Yeah.
was working, I had to look after my children, I had to look after the house, and I wasn't even aware that I was suffering in a way. I was
Yeah.
just trying to get through it. And I was really blessed to come into contact with kind of a holistic therapist,
Hmm.
West London Bone Therapy, and she really helped me to see that actually I did need support.
Yeah.
And she really kept, not pushing me, but just gently kind of persuading me that I should go and see someone
Yeah.
and it would help me. So I was really fortunate that I could find someone from our community. And so for some people that puts them off
Yeah.
because we have this idea that, they might go and tell someone.
Yeah.
But for me, like I felt it was really important that they understand, as Punjabi, as a Sikh, where I was coming from and how these issues would affect me. So there were challenges.
Yeah.
For me, they were more kind of my own challenges. Am I willing to actually go and accept help? And there's the shame attached to it.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
with my mum, it was different issues. It was about kind of just pushing it under the carpet. And again, in a way, it was the same. It was still the kind of the shame and all of that. So I've kind of made it my personal issue, my personal mission to really put it out there. Yeah, I've been for counselling, and I think actually almost everybody should go for counselling because there's always
Yeah.
issues underneath that really need to be looked at.
I think with modern life, especially, um, there's so much pressure at you from all different angles, whether it's social media or society's expectations or expectations of women and just your own expectations on yourself. I think you're right. I think almost everybody needs some form of therapy or some source of forum where they can talk openly and honestly. That's, I think, modern living. Is that way. But I think, Benji, you touched on two really important issues there, the language barrier um, for your mum. And I think a lot of us with sort of older parents, when we are trying to access health services, we do find that that is an issue and that is something that can put people off,
Yeah,
certainly, because there's us trying to explain it to our parents. And I think some things get lost in translation, but it's sometimes better coming from a health professional. But then there's barriers like interpreters, and that in itself can put people off. And I think that might skew mental health data as well. How many people from our communities access it? Well, it's why aren't they accessing it? Yes, there's the stigma, and yes, there's this Punjabi mentality of, oh, you just deal with it, you don't talk about it. But there are other factors as well that I think need looking into as well, that all feed into the data. And then you spoke, Benji, about women. So would you say with kind of women, there's definitely a need, or a heightened need, or you're seeing more need with women, especially considering they have so much to juggle, that they often don't stop and actually think, well, how am I doing? How's my well-being? Am I actually well? So do you think that that feeds into it as well, just that constant juggling
Yeah.
act?
I mean, I think there's different issues for men and women. I wouldn't say women need it more than men, because as we've seen in the media recently, there is a huge need for men to be able to step up. And
Yeah,
in a way, the issues are the same. It is this mentality of, you know, just be going forward, and not really looking after ourselves. And we've become part of this. It's kind of a merger of the, you know, that Punjabi culture and that British culture of the stiff upper lip.
yeah,
Um, but at the same time, it's just like, well, you just keep working, which kind of comes from the Punjabi side of it as well. But definitely, you know, there's issues that relate to women, you know, especially when it comes to emotions. That's kind of one of my passions, is because I was so disconnected from my emotions growing up as well, that we don't know how to connect to those emotions
yeah,
anymore. And as women, like, ideally we'd like to think that, you know, women are more connected to their emotions, but what I'm finding is we're so not. And actually we express ourselves through our emotions
yeah.
naturally, and if we're not in touch with those, that's really affecting how women are dealing with life, and their levels of resilience as well.
Yeah,
um yeah.
that's really interesting, Benji. Really, really well put. So, I wanted to talk about the Punjabi community. Is there a stigma around mental health difficulties in the Punjabi community, and why?
So I think we're pretty clear that there is a stigma around it, and hopefully organizations like Seek Your Mind and others are starting to work towards kind of loosening that grip. Um, so why is, you know, it's the shame aspect. It's like there's something wrong with that person. Some of the words we use, gamali,
Mm,
you know, damag kravya,
yeah,
you know, it's really not nice terms, and there's just not an understanding of what's wrong with that, or if there is even something wrong with them. So there's the stigma attached of that.
yeah,
There's also kind of things like kisine ko skita, like, you know, jadoo tu na, you know, someone's
yes,
done something to them. And so that adds to it. I know in my family, you know, there was a big element of, you know, someone's done something, or that it's been bad luck, or you should go to this baba and they'll sort you out. So there's that kind of aspect as well, that creates a barrier. And then some of the things that we've touched upon, you know, the language barrier, you know, therapists not necessarily understanding our culture or
yeah.
our religion, and how to deal with it. So it all kind of adds up. I'm sure there's other reasons as well. They're the ones that are really coming to mind right now.
And I just wanted to talk about the terms, because a mental health and well-being, there that's a recognizable term. But if I could just separate them, or you could, because I know there are overlaps, what is mental health, and then what is well-being? I know
Okay.
that the two obviously coincide, but if
Yeah.
we can just kind of, because somebody asked me, why do they put mental health and well-being together? What's the difference between the two? So I just wanted to put that to you, not having an answer myself to
Okay.
that.
So personally, I would say well-being encompasses mental health as well.
Hmm.
But because we wanted to speak specifically
Yeah,
about mental health, that's why we kind of put it in the phrase. So obviously, mental refers to the mind. Mental health is something that we all have.
yeah,
So we all have mental health because we all have a mind, and we all experience challenges and difficulties at different
yeah,
times. So it's not like a straight line. You know, sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down. Ideally, we could be above that if we, you know, the way Gurbani talks to us,
yeah,
and you know, ideally we work towards that. But most of us in our daily lives, we will experience some sort of mental health challenges at one time or another. So that's an all-encompassing term, and that could include, minor things like, like minor depression, like sadness or fear or anxiety, depression. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you get more severe things like bipolar disease, schizophrenia, and things like that. So in terms of well-being, and in terms of what I do, I look at more in terms of the body as well. So the body actually influences the mind. So
Yes.
we have, I don't want to go into it too much, but one of my current passions is looking at, we have a gut brain. So we have a brain in our stomach, which controls our fear center, and we have a brain in our heart as well. So these are literally, there's a brain in there.
Yeah.
And those things can also determine what thoughts we have. So it's looking at a holistic perspective. And then beyond that is our Atma, is our soul, and kind of the gyan that Guru's given us as well about how to
Yeah.
bring all that into alignment so we can connect to Paramatma. So I think well-being or wellness is an all-encompassing term.
That's beautifully put, Benji. So in the Punjabi community, what issues would you say are most prevalent? What have you found as part of your organization that hit our
Yeah.
community really, really hard?
I think it varies according to different people. So, you get youngsters and the incredible pressures of, studying, you've got to be the doctor or the
Yeah.
solicitor.
Yeah.
You get kind of social media pressures, this expectation that you've got to be perfect because that's what you're seeing. Also bullying through social media, and in real life, face to face. And then you obviously get women's issues like domestic abuse,
100.
kind of family pressures, in-laws, that kind of thing. Trauma, which could encompass anything, so kind of abuse, and any experiences, and with men, it can be sometimes, it could be to do with financial pressures that could affect women as well, especially people who have maybe come over from this country, and especially right now, it must be really difficult
Yeah.
to find that support. And, even the older generation, um, issues with their children or their grandchildren, what their relationship with them is and how they're struggling with them. Back in the day, we used to say there was so much respect for the elders, and, has that been lost? Is
100.
it, is it an exchange, or has it become unbalanced? So there's so many things that affect our community. I don't think we can pigeonhole them into it's just this, that, or the other. And culture plays a big role as well, because how much are we focusing on kind of Western culture? Not that one or the other is
Yeah.
good or bad, but this kind of sense of identity. I know when I was growing up, I went to a Roman Catholic school, so I didn't quite feel part of
Yeah.
them. But then when I went to secondary school, I went to like a really Asian kind of secondary
Yeah.
school, and I didn't quite feel part of
Yeah.
them either. So identity has a big role in that as well.
I think identity is something that a lot of us can relate to as well. Growing up here, but having that sort of Punjabi background as well. Sometimes it's not easy to marry the two,
Yeah.
and then you kind of feel split as well, and then that's associated with sometimes guilt. Am I living up to people's expectations? So I think that is something that is echoed in a lot of people. So Benji, when people approach Seek Your Mind, what kind of support do you offer them, or what kind of support can you offer them?
So generally, we advise people to contact Seek Your Mind through the website. So I'm an associate, which means that I kind of do this thing, but I don't necessarily give professional help.
Mm-hmm.
But we have qualified psychologists, clinical psychologists, and qualified health professionals there. So what they will do is they will make phone calls. So you can contact them, have a phone call. They might offer support in that way, or they might signpost to other people. One amazing thing that we're kind of trying to work on is, creating a database of people who are from our faith or from our background,
Wow.
so they know that they can go there. Even with myself, with my mum, I needed extra support, so I contacted them, and they were really great in giving me kind of, contacting different charities and things that could help support my mum. So those are some of the supports. And then obviously right now there's not been much of it, but before that, we were doing kind of workshops in Gurdwara, like drop-in sessions as well, where people can just come and talk. and talk about their issues.
That's
Um,
brilliant.
and kind of another branch of it, which is now evolving, is research as well, because
Hmm.
there's not much research on how, what kind of mental health facilities are out there for
Yes.
specifically for the Sikh and Punjabi community. So that's something that's coming out of this as well.
Yeah, it's really important that they're given a voice, and certainly it sounds like the research is giving the Punjabi community a sort of voice, which is fantastic. So, Benji, I wanted to move on to the lockdown. Um, what, how would
I
you,
love how you said it, the lockdown.
the lockdown has become this thing. How would you say the lockdown is impacting people's health and well-being? Because it's either going to create health and well-being problems that weren't necessarily there before, or it's going to exacerbate existing ones that were there all along. So how would you say that this situation is affecting people's health and well-being?
So I would kind of disagree very slightly in the sense that I don't necessarily think it's bringing up new issues. I think it's a case of all the things that were already there are coming up,
Yeah,
and it feels like it's a new issue. It's because maybe you weren't
you
aware of
haven't
it.
dealt with it. Yeah,
So it's like the melting pot right now is all the focus is on those things that needed looking at.
yeah.
So for me, like I would like to think I take a spiritual
Mm,
viewpoint on it, which is it's an opportunity. It's
yeah,
an opportunity to work on all those things. So there's a lot of strain on relationships, whether it's husband, wife, children, whatever it is, in-laws or parents. There's a lot of strain on that, but it is an opportunity to look at those relationships more carefully. And it could be that you need to work on them, and it could be that actually you need to acknowledge that it's not working, and you need to move on. But it is difficult, it is challenging as well, because obviously we're used to keeping very busy,
yeah,
and ignoring these issues, and
yeah.
that's kind of kept us going, and now we have to face them. So I definitely think it is affecting people's mental health. It's creating a lot of stress, but on the other side, that people are using that opportunity to deal with that as well. So I know myself, even though I've done parenting courses, it was quite challenging for me at the beginning
Yeah,
to have the kids home.
yeah,
But at the same time, it gave me an opportunity to think about, why do I feel triggered at certain times, when the kids don't want to study, or actually it was to do with my issues. I
mm.
was feeling a bit inadequate, or, having my husband at home, as lovely as he is, that can be challenging as well.
Yes,
So it gave me the opportunity to work with him on that. Obviously, where there's people who are in much dire circumstances, so for example, where there's abusive
yeah,
relationships, whether it's with children or partners, obviously that's really, really challenging. And I would suggest is try and reach out, try and get some help. It might not be that you can get out of it right now, um, but again, it's an opportunity to recognize what is not working, and maybe it's a chance to think about, is this the right thing for you right now? Um, and so that's kind of in terms of mental health, well-being, in terms of movement. I found, when the lockdown first started, we stayed home. There
yeah,
was this fear,
yeah,
and we didn't even want to go out. We were
no,
just watching lots and lots of movies,
yeah,
and that really affected. So, if we lack of movement really affects our physical and our mental health as well. So, I soon realized that actually I need to get moving. So, I would go out for a walk in the morning before the kids got up, so I had my space. I could connect to nature, and then I could come back, and then my husband would take them on bike rides later on. So it's really important that we keep moving. I know even now, like I'm eating much more than I'm moving, so I've really got to look at
yeah,
that.
yeah,
The other thing that came up was there was a lot of social media posts about anything's okay right now, everything's
yeah.
okay right now. Whatever you need to do, do it. And I understand where that was coming from. It was coming from a good place,
Yeah.
like, don't stress about the little things. But I actually found that detrimental to my health, because I was like, do you know what? If I need a chocolate biscuit, I'm going to have it because anything's okay. And for me, chocolate biscuits aren't very good. They make me feel really ill,
Yeah.
like
Oh
lots of
gosh.
sugar does.
Yeah.
So I was just going for it because I was looking for that comfort. So that's an issue as well, is everything's okay as long as it's good for you.
Good
It's
for
okay
you.
for you.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
if you know that you have issues with diabetes,
Yeah.
obesity, blood pressure, in my case, just being able to digest that sugar, is just be aware of that. So it's not that everything's okay. It's just, you know, you don't have to
Yeah.
stress, but balance things out.
It was interesting that you speak about that because a little while ago we were having a conversation about how it was a wellness training I was doing as part of work. So they put on this continuing professional development where we came together and we just spoke about our well-being during the lockdown, so as teachers. And then it was quite interesting that a lot of people said that social media put so much pressure on them because wherever you looked, it was people baking amazing things or
Mm.
going out and serving the community in incredible ways and doing amazing pieces of art and wonderful videos. And they felt under pressure to do something, that I
Yeah.
feel that I need to do something. And I even felt that at one point. So I think that that's a double-edged sword. There are people doing incredible things out there. I'm not taking anything away from that. But I think also it put an awful lot of pressure on people. And
Yeah.
it was interesting that other people said it as well, because it's only when you start talking, you realize actually, I'm not the only person that thinks this, and I'm not the only person that feels this way. But yeah, what you say about anything goes, that's, I think a lot of people bought into that, but then they started to realize, oh, hang on a minute, actually, no,
Mm.
everything doesn't go. And it's not right for me and it's not right for my family. So maybe I just need to, you know, take my family in a different route. But the thing I found for me that's really worked is a routine. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that works for everybody, but I just, for my own balance and well-being, I thought as soon as I was working from home, oh, the routine can go out the window. Yay, I can
Mm.
get it whatever time I want. But actually, I found the opposite, that I need a routine. I need
Yeah.
some sort of a structure. And the daily exercise, that's the one thing I will cling on to. I might not do
Mm.
other things might go by the wayside, but the exercise every day, that is so crucial. Fresh air and
Mm.
exercise, they're, you know, that medicine is free,
Yeah.
but it's so, so crucial. It's so important. I'm not saying every issue can be solved by those two things, but
Yeah.
I think that they will do wonders for you without you even realizing that they're doing wonders for you as well. So I think those things you've said are incredibly relatable,
Yeah.
definitely.
So
Um,
I found a similar thing, you know, looking at all these mums' Instagram pages, and it made me feel really inadequate.
yeah,
And I realized actually I was spending way too much time on social media. So I did take a step to actually step away from social media, plus the fear of all the news reports. So I took that step to stop checking my Instagram, stop checking my Facebook for a little while
yeah,
until I could find myself again. And that's the other thing. I agree with the routine. Again, it's got to be in balance. So, what's worked for me is I'm a bit of an introvert and I'm used to having a lot of time to myself. So I was finding it difficult to have so many people
yeah,
around me. So, you know, we've got a timetable for the kids now. And because they're a bit older, I can do this. So after lunch, I will have my space.
yeah,
I will have my time to go and work on whatever I need to work on, you know, and that could be meditation, it could be reading Gurbani, could be watching self-development like YouTube videos, whatever it is. And then that just makes me a better person to be around as well, and a
yeah,
better mother as well. So, and then I can come back and, you know, we can spend the evening together. So I think if it is possible, especially if you've got lots of people in your house, it's also really important to spend that time alone. And also for the children, like they're not used to having lots of people in their face all the time
yeah,
as well. So if they're old enough, like giving them plenty of time to just play and not getting so stressed out about the
yeah.
educational aspect. And the timetable helps that. It helps to give them balance.
To give some sort of a routine and some sort of a structure. I think that's really, really important as well. So Benji, how do you develop resilience? How do you develop that resilience?
So the thing about resilience is you need the other side of the coin. So there has to be challenges in order to develop resilience. And I feel like I'm quite well qualified in resilience at this point because I've had lots of challenges.
Yeah,
And I feel like most of us do have lots of challenges. Um, and it's kind of, I don't want to say it's a choice because it's not that simple, but it is a case of, you know, someone can give you something. I literally just saw a quote before we came on about, you know, it's not the gift that you're given, it's how you react to that
yeah,
gift. So resilience to me is, it's not about bouncing back quickly. It's not about becoming the same person you were before the challenge
mm,
happened. It's actually about learning from that process. What was there to learn? How can I grow from that process? How can I connect to myself? So I use something called the 3 A's. So the first one is awareness. So just like someone who has a problem with alcohol, they have to be aware of the issue
Yes.
before they can even take the first step. So, become aware of what is the challenge that's going on in your life. What does it mean to you? So you have the awareness of the challenge.
Yeah.
The second part of it is acceptance. So again, if we use the same analogy, until you accept that you have an issue or a challenge, and you accept hukam in a way, so you
Yeah.
accept that whatever's happening is happening. This is reality. You can't move forward until you accept the current situation. You might want to call it, you can't accept the present moment. So we talk a lot about mindfulness, but it's literally that simple, is until you don't accept, you can't move on.
Yeah.
So once you have that awareness of what's going on, you can learn to accept it.
Wow.
And once you accept it, then you can take action.
Yes.
And sometimes action can be inaction. So sometimes it can be that there's someone who's saying something to you and actually you don't want to react to it anymore. And that's an action in itself. And sometimes it can be, okay, how do I move forward from this situation? So that's kind of worked for me. And I find that really useful. So when I am faced with those situations, I can kind of see it from a wider perspective with the awareness. And then I can accept, this is not going to change necessarily right now. And then that it kind of opens the view to what action or inaction needs to happen.
I love that. The 3 A's. I like things that are easy to remember, catchy. No, that's fantastic. And I'm hoping a lot of people, if they look back at this, will try to put those three ideas into action as well. So that's really, really important. So Benji, I mean, I know we have touched on this, but how can we protect our well-being during the lockdown? Because this is a very unique set of circumstances that a lot of us have found ourselves in for over 2 months now. So how can we, particularly at this moment in time, protect our well-being, protect our mental health?
Yeah. So it's funny in a way, because Guru's given us all of the tools that we needed to deal with this time. So one of those is Sangat. So that's been a big one for me, is even though we're isolated, social isolation doesn't literally mean you have to be socially isolated. You can still talk to people. So the Vichar group that I mentioned right at the beginning, we're keeping that going over Zoom, keeping in touch with, friends and family. That's really important. And reaching out to people who you know are vulnerable. And even if you're suffering, is try and think of that person who's not going to judge you. And even if it's not a family member or a friend, you can't think of anyone, reach out to these organizations, reach out to Seek Your Mind. I think there's one focusing on men called Taraqi. If it's a really severe issue, if there's suicidal thoughts, reach out to the Samaritans. There's so many charities out there. So one is, keep talking, keep social, keep good Sangat. And Sangat isn't just, one-to-one like we're talking now. Sangat could be what you watch on YouTube, what books are you reading? So, keeping good company, what are you looking at on social media? What are the messages you get? Is it bringing up fear within you? Or is it keeping you in a positive space? Is it helping you to grow? And Sangat, Sangat of the Guru, of course, as well. So reading Gurbani, you're having Sangat of Guru when you're reading Gurbani. So that's going to keep you in a realistic view as well. So you're going to get that understanding of hukam. You're going to get that understanding of the true meaning of life and the true meaning of who you are, that you're not this body, this mind, these circumstances, you're beyond that. So Sangat of Guru as well. And then obviously comes in with that is Simran. So if you don't have a meditation practice, even, science is catching up with us. The psychology field is catching up with what Guru Nanak Dev Ji told us hundreds of years ago. And that's, connect to yourself through Simran, connect to Paramatma through Simran. And even if it's just simple mindfulness, there's loads of free apps at the moment. There's, my mind's gone blank. So there's Calm, Headspace, and they give, free trials for a certain amount of time. So just finding that space. I think one of the biggest challenges is going from this constantly going on the, being on the run, to now what do I do?
Yeah.
And you have to learn how to be still, and that's really difficult if you've never done it. So
Yeah.
meditation, whether that's Nama Bias and Simran, or whether that's, just sitting in silence. Another thing is, maybe writing your thoughts down, journaling. That can help you process things as well. So those are two things that we mentioned: physical movement, something that ticks the boxes for mental health, spiritual health, emotional health, physical health for me is that walk in nature.
Yeah.
So I will go early in the morning when you can feel that kind of mist, the sun
Yeah.
is rising, you can see the birds, you can see the trees. It clears my mind, and I'm able to connect to Guru in that way as well. It's like कुदरत का वन कहा विचार वार्या ना जावा एक बार जो तुद पावे साई बलिकार तू
Waheguru.
सदा सलामत निरंकार. You can't help
Waheguru.
but not connect. So, if you can, get some physical movement and connect in any way that you can through that as well. I'm just trying to think. So a major thing that I feel like not enough of us talk about is this concept of Korj. So of searching within yourself. So it could be Korj in terms of searching within Gurbani, understanding what the
Yes.
truth of life is through
Yeah.
Gurbani. And that means not just reading your Nitnem or reading Gurbani in a parrot fashion every day, but actually just take one line or two lines and really look into it, really contemplate it, and try to understand what is it telling you.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've come in interacted with is there's a lot of Gursikhs they've had their Nitnem for years and years, but they're struggling in this time, and it's because
Yeah.
they've read it, but they haven't understood it or they haven't implemented it.
Yeah.
So even if you just, Salok Mahalla Nova by Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, it's so on point right now. Is just understanding the reality, especially if you've experienced bereavement in this time.
Yeah.
It is, just contemplate on that one line a day if you can, or, do a search part. That's really important. And then this Korj, this search within ourselves as well. So understanding, what are the thoughts in my mind? Are they helping me or are they negative?
Yeah.
How do I feel? Because actually our stomach and our heart give us lots of indications for when we're in a dangerous situation
Yeah.
or when we're in a good situation, and we don't listen to them anymore. We learn to ignore them.
Yeah.
So if we start reconnecting to that, and then obviously the ultimate cause is connecting to your Atma and
Yeah.
realizing, actually that we're the Jod Sarup, we are the divine light.
Yeah.
So taking that forward. So you mentioned before one other aspect is seva, and that doing that Gurbani Korj and that meditation is seva as well. But if you're in that kind of if you're in that position that you can go and help other people, like do that, and it could be a phone call, it could be a message to ask how someone is, it could be checking up on your, elder kind of residents who live on your street. Not all of us can go out and feed the homeless,
No.
but that's not always what's required. And it's great that people are doing that, but sometimes, even when going for my morning walks, to see one of the Bibiyan, they're really missing the Gurdwara right now.
They
They're
are.
really missing the Sangat. They're really missing
Absolutely.
the Kirtan. And, just to smile at them and just to stop and ask them how they are, it really helps them. It makes their day. And I know I really value that as well when they smile at me and ask me, how am I feeling? So
And
that's kind of my toolkit.
And I think, Benji, you will never know the effects of that smile, that quick text. Oh, I was just thinking about you. Let's do a Zoom call. We believe in a higher power. We believe in Maharaj, and they've put you in that position, but you don't actually know the far-reaching consequences of you just reaching out to somebody, how that might make their day, what that might trigger. So really powerful, Benji, some incredibly powerful steps that you've spoken about there. And you spoke about thoughts. It's just so hard to regulate your thoughts. I don't know if you find that, but I find that to just stop myself from going on a particular train and then just regulating that, are these thoughts actually serving me? Are they serving anybody? But yeah, the regulation of a person's thoughts, I just find that's the hardest thing. That's the hardest thing in the world.
So I would go back to those 3 A's that we talked about. Is the first thing is awareness. So you've got to be aware of your thoughts in order to regulate them.
Yep.
So that's really important. And then, you know, then you've got to accept that actually these thoughts are coming and you're observing those thoughts. And that's where meditation,
Yeah.
mindfulness, all of that kind of stuff comes in. Journaling, you know, getting it down.
Yeah.
One of the most powerful questions that I use in my life, which, you know, when I came across it, it's so simple, but I use it with everything, is it's a simple question, and it's, is it true?
Yeah.
Simple
Yeah.
as that. So when I'm thinking, you know, I have this thing, I don't have it, I'm getting rid of it, I'm letting go of it, which is sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like, am I doing a good enough job?
Yeah.
And I always ask myself, is it true? And most of the time it's not true. So, you know, am I a good enough mother? Am I a good enough wife? Am I serving enough?
Yeah.
When I start to ask myself, when I do that vichar of is it true? Most of the time the answer is no. And even if it is true, now that you're aware of it,
Yeah.
now that you've assessed it and you know it's true, then you can move to action and you can start to do something about it.
Wow. I love that. I love that answer, Benji. I wanted to speak about social media because that's something that that's popped up again and again. And it, you know, when I have conversations with my students and we speak about well-being, they talk about social media and the pressures of social media as well. Would you advise people to have something like a digital detox, some time away from social media, some time away from the TV screen? Because certainly when this lockdown, the pandemic started, you turned on the news, you couldn't you couldn't move for really terrifying stories. And
Yeah.
yes, it's serious. I understand that, but I just think the reporting of it also just heightens that fear, and can just terrify you, can disturb your sleep, can disturb your balance. So would you recommend something like that?
So I would say there's two things we can do. One is, as you've suggested, taking a detox. Um, but with that, you know, some people it might be they just might come off.
Yeah.
But for most of us, it's temporary because we might need it for work,
Yeah.
for example. Or, you know, there's a lot of amazing things there, a lot of helpful things in social media as well. You know, most of the work that we've talked about, like Seek Your Mind
Yeah.
and other organizations, you know, basics of Sikhi, Nanak Nam, you know, they're putting stuff out there that is really helping people. So as a temporary solution, I think that's a really good idea. I did that, like I
Yeah.
said, I did that myself
I've
at the
had to do it in
beginning.
the past, just step
Sure.
back.
But one thing I would say is if you do need your social media, is have a look at who you're following
Yeah.
and be really tuned in to how you feel. So when I did this a few years ago, every time a post would come up and it made me feel a little bit bad or a little
Yeah.
bit negative, I would unfollow them.
Wow.
And you don't have to
No.
follow everybody. You
Yeah.
don't have to follow, like I was following news channels and I unfollowed them and I thought, no, Channel 4, they're kind of okay. But then I found I was still getting that feeling. So I clicked unfollow. So all the people that I follow now, I find uplift me. Yes, occasionally, you know, something will get posted,
Yeah.
and I kind of have a three strikes and you're out process as well.
I like
So
that.
if I find that, you know, they put up about three posts and it's made me feel not good about myself, especially, or made me think in a negative way, then I will just unfollow it. It's as simple as that in a way. And I will try and follow uplifting things. So things that are connecting me to Sikhi, to Guru, things that are giving me positive messages, and raising my awareness. So just be careful. Sometimes, like at the moment, there's a lot of stuff about Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff about 1984. And even though that stuff doesn't make me feel good, it is important
Yeah.
for my growth and how I am in the world and for my awareness. So it's not a case of, oh, you just unfollow everything that doesn't make you feel good. It's, you just got to be, Guru talks about Vivek Buddhi. So this discriminating intellect, and you've got to be in tune with yourself to know the difference between right and wrong, and what's going to help you and what's not going to help you. So it's a case of cultivating that and refining that, and you can base that on Gurmat.
It's about being discerning as well, isn't it?
That's it.
What's working for me, what's lifting me, what's having a really toxic effect on me as well. So I like that. I like the three strikes and you're out. Just you know, summarizing for the people that are watching, and the kind of filtering too, because I think you're right. There is a pressure sometimes to follow everybody that follows you, but that's a
It's a
pressure.
small tip.
Yeah.
When it comes to family members, you can stay friends, but you can unfollow their feed. So
Nice.
if you don't want to offend
Yeah.
anyone, I'm not saying I've done it,
No.
but
No,
You can
it's,
just not see their feed.
I mean, I wanted to touch on the social media just because as a teacher, it's a conversation I constantly have with my children. You know, the posts and the lives that they see online, they buy into it hook, line, and sinker. But I often have
Mm.
to say to them, look, do you post every single thing online? Well, they're like, no, I wouldn't dream of putting something out there without a filter, without my best pose. I said, well, that's what a lot of people do as well. But it's a
Yes.
double-edged sword because what you're putting out there, then you sometimes buy into as well. And it can have quite an adverse effect, especially on my students, their perception of themselves as well. So I
So I
think,
would ask them a simple question, which is, how does it make you
mm,
feel? So every
yeah,
time that post comes up, if it's making you feel jealous, it's making you feel angry, or that you're not enough, or you don't have enough, then it's a simple formula.
yeah. But I just think with the youngsters, they're so attached to it. It's like,
Mm.
but I don't want to. But it's about arming them with the tools and saying these are
Yeah.
all options, but there is something that you can do about it as well. You don't have to feel helpless. You can actually empower yourselves. So I like that the three strikes and the kind of following or muting, as we'll say, family members. Because I just find that that pops up more and more in conversations we have, especially in school, about health and well-being. Social media
Mm.
is a big part of that now, and I get that to an extent as well. I mean, we spoke about feeling inadequate when we see certain posts as well, so I
Yeah.
think it's quite important. And then Benji, you've touched on this all the way throughout. I mean, your gyan and knowledge of Sikhi is just amazing. I know nothing, but how do you connect the two? And I know you've been speaking about that all the way through, but how do you connect Sikhi to mental health and well-being?
So I would say, like, Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj is all about mental well-being. Like,
Wow.
the amount of times the mind is mentioned, hundreds and hundreds of times, it's all about the mind. E man meria, e man pyarya, constantly talking about the
Yeah.
mind. So it's very much interlinked, and it's very much linked into health and well-being. Dukh sukh. How many times do we hear about dukh and sukh?
Yeah.
So I think it is, in a way, it's a no-brainer. Like, I don't want to bring it down to a manual,
Hmm.
but it's like a manual. It's a manual for life, and um, Guru's given us the guidance to say, this is the purpose of your life, and this is how you get there. And it's not just the gurus who have done it, because sometimes we put the gurus up there and we say, well, I can't do it. I'm just me.
Mm.
But Guru Sikhs, people through the generations who have come along, they followed the same guidance. They've done the same things that the gurus have told us. They followed their hukam, and they've achieved the same thing. And it's not all in our power. Obviously, it's down to Guru Prasad
Yeah.
as well. So for me, I think there's a few things that have really helped me. I came into Sikhi about 8 years ago, so about the same time I was suffering with my physical health, when I had children.
Yeah.
And before that, I didn't really know anything. I say my family was Sikhi by name, not by nature.
Okay.
Um, so, but that's what brought me comfort. That's what helped me get through that time. And actually, I was reflecting yesterday. We'd had it's kind of a Seek Your Mind meeting. We were
Hmm.
talking about 1984 and trying to educate ourselves on
Yeah.
it. And after that, I was really reflecting, like, how did people get through that time? And it was
Yeah.
through Sikhi. And I shuddered to think where I would be now without Sikhi,
Yeah.
what kind of
Absolutely.
state I would be in. So for me, the things are, some of the things you hear all the time, like Ardas, just requesting to Guru to
Yeah.
give us guidance, not to change anything, but just give us the strength to
Yeah.
accept Hukam
Of
and to
course.
learn what it is that we need to learn and to connect to Guru. But I think one of the most important things that certain Sangat have given me over the years is what I mentioned earlier, which is Gurwani Korj. Is the thing is, if you got married to somebody, I know back in the day it was that way, but
Yeah.
right now, if you got married to somebody, you would get to know them.
Yeah.
You would have a conversation with them every day. If you could, you would go to see them all the time. And a lot of the time, and I don't mean to judge, but a lot of the time we say we're Guru the Sikh, like we're the Sikh of the Gurus, but we don't make a relationship. We don't talk to our Guru,
Hmm.
and we don't make the effort to have a conversation with them. And how do you do that? You talk to them through Ardas, you talk to them through your mind, and you have a conversation through Guru Granth Sahib Ji. So really simple thing that's worked for me is just taking a hukamnama every morning. You can even do it on an app now. It's that
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah.
But when you make that heartfelt ardas and that random hukamnama comes up, it's never random. Like,
No.
it's so relevant.
No. Yeah.
And just reading, even if it's a little bit of Gurbani every day, just try and do a search part in English. Do it in English if you can't do it in Gurmukhi. And it's just getting to know your guru, and it's the same themes running through over and over again. But those start to seep into your mind. And to me, that's what transforms us, like as people. That's what transforms us from all the suffering to what we're talking about, wellness and resilience. And, potentially and hopefully, Maharaj's Kripa, beyond that to milap with Vaheguru.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to so many people since this situation particularly, who say that it's their faith, it's their spirituality that's really helping them get through those very, very difficult times. So yeah, I love that, Benji, the ardas, trying to do a little bit of Bani if you can, meditation, all absolutely fantastic, Benji. So we've got very little time left on this live. It's been so interesting, Benji, and I think really important for us to have this conversation. Your mental health, your well-being, how balanced you are emotionally. I think those kind of conversations will never be in vain. You will always gain something from them. So I want to say thank you very much, Benji, for coming on and just enlightening all of us and giving us some really practical tips about how we can not just get through this time, but how we can help ourselves, help our own well-being as well. So Benji, you are Core Coaching. I want everybody to follow Benji on social media because there's some really interesting things on there, very uplifting things on there, very eye-opening things on there. And then the organization obviously is Seek Your Mind. So definitely encourage everybody to have a look at that website, have a look at their social media profile as well. So Benji, thank you so, so much. So knowledgeable. I could listen to you all day, Benji. It's absolutely fascinating. But what would you like to leave our listeners with? Because the talk was about wellness. It was about our mental health. So what would you like to leave people with?
I mean, if there's only one thing I can leave you with, it's the answers in the Guru Granth Sahib Ji. So that's the all-encompassing thing. Everything is there. But obviously, for some of us, it's a bit more difficult to access it. So just take that one step. We hear that Bhakti, if you take one step to Guru, Guru takes 1,000 million towards you.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's wrapped up as mindfulness. Sometimes it's wrapped up as, going for a walk. But it's still make that effort to connect to Guru.
Definitely.
And thank you for the opportunity. And
no,
if I've
thank
said
you.
wrong, please forgive me.
No, thank you. We can only do these lives if people like yourself are willing to give their time. And it's been an important topic, a difficult topic, a complex topic, but ultimately, hopefully, that people feel that they can have those conversations and they can look inward and they can do almost like an audit of themselves. Where am I mentally? And, remember the 3 A's as well. That's really, really important. So Seek Your Mind, Core Coaching. Benji, thank you so much. You've been an absolute star. And I hope everybody at home has got a lot from it, as much as I've got from it, certainly. Benji, thank you very much. Thank you. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you, Ji.
Thank you.